If you walk through the outskirts of this town today, you'll find a massive courtyard completely abandoned. Locals refuse to step foot inside this Haveli. The rumor is simple: anyone who crosses this threshold doesn't come out alive. Decades ago, 4 members of the wealthy Prabhakar family, the parents and their eldest son, Ajit, were found dead inside these walls. The youngest son, Rajesh, vanished without a trace, never to be seen again. The police investigation hit a dead end immediately. There were no signs of forced entry and no missing valuables to suggest a robbery. Every door was locked from the inside. To understand what emptied this house, we have to look back to 1980, when a 23-year-old bride named Kamla first arrived at the estate. The destruction of this family didn't come from an outside threat. It was a supernatural infection triggered from within the Haveli's own walls. Kamla arrived at the Haveli in a state of total collapse. Her mother was dead, and her father had recently vanished without a trace. Desperate for any kind of safety, her family rushed her into a marriage with Ajit Prabhakar, just so she'd have a roof over her head. At first, the Prabhakars were incredibly welcoming. Kamla slowly began to adjust, finding a fragile sense of security in the rhythm of the new household. Then, the sounds started. Kamla began waking up in the dead of night to the faint noise of someone weeping. She'd look over at her sleeping husband and realize there was no one else in the room. Instead of questioning the house, Kamla convinced herself these phantom voices belonged to her missing father, calling out to her from some place of torment. Kamla's state, trapped between the grief of her past and the isolation of her new home, left her without any psychological defenses. She was completely exposed to whatever was already waiting in the shadows. One afternoon, Kamla followed the sounds of weeping past the living quarters and into a hidden, forgotten room deep inside the Haveli. The floor was a literal graveyard. Human bones and shattered skulls were scattered across the stone, surrounded by fresh pools of blood. In the center of the room sat the source of the anomaly, a dark, ancient wooden idol, heavily armed and carved with terrifying precision. Beside it lay a letter from the family's ancestors. It stated clearly that the idol was cursed and that it had tormented their lineage for generations. As Kamla read the words, the idol began to vibrate. She slowly reached out and touched the wood. Immediately, she couldn't breathe. She heard her father's scream echo through the room and collapsed. The moment her skin touched that wood, the threshold was crossed. The Haveli no longer just contained the entity. It had finally found a way out. When Kamla woke up, she looked like a ghost of herself. Her skin had gone a chalky white. Her eyes were sunken into dark pits, and she began lashing out with violent threats at anyone who spoke to her. Ajit would find her in the dark corners of their bedroom, facing the wall and laughing, but seconds later she would turn to him in tears, begging for help and claiming she was innocent of whatever was happening to her. The violence escalated without warning. While her father-in-law was quietly having tea, Kamla lunged from behind, burying her fingernails deep into his spine while laughing. The family restrained her to a bed, but she broke free late that night. She sprinted to her father-in-law's room, slaughtered him, and began consuming his flesh. In a state of total shock, Ajit and his mother slammed the heavy wooden door shut, locking a screaming cannibalistic Kamla inside with the corpse. The bride Ajit had married was gone. Her body was now a host for something ancient and predatory. As the screams continued behind the locked door, Ajit's mother finally confessed the truth. This was the result of their own ancestors, who practiced dark magic and bound a demonic entity to that wooden idol. Looking at the family lineage, the entity doesn't attack at random. It requires a specific physical host. The energy bypassed direct blood relatives. Because Kamla was drowning in grief, the curse snapped onto her as the path of least resistance. Knowing they couldn't stop her, the mother grabbed her sons and fled the Haveli in the dead of night, desperate to leave the bloodbath behind. But running was futile. The curse eventually claimed them all, leading to the 4 bodies found in the estate and Rajesh's eternal disappearance. In folklore, generational curses are inescapable debts. The sins of the past simply lie dormant, waiting for fresh trauma to wake them up. Today, that Haveli stands as a permanent monument to a bloodline's dark legacy.